Salut survivors! Welcome back to Solo Podcast channel in Night of the Dead. In today's video, I will provide 10 tips about tower defense maze design. I am now at day 30 of my first playthrough Let's Play series with a lot of learning. And I decided to share these learnings. Needless to say that I wished I had known some of these tips when I started playing. These tips are not ranked in any priority order, and I try to keep them as general as possible. You'll need to adapt them to your own situation. If you have any question, please let me know in the comments. Now, let's get started, survivors. Tip number 1. You need to be able to reload a vast majority of your traps. This will be critical in your survival. You can reload traps by different means. You can either reload your traps simply by being above to have a overhead reloading, either standing on the traps, like here I'm standing on top of pendulums, compressors, or through a floor, like under here, there is a compressor, and I can reload and repair that compressor that's just under here. You can also reload and repair traps on an overhead, say, terrace approach, like here. Or you can also reload your traps through walls. For example, here I have some guillotines behind that wall, and I can reload and repair these guillotines behind the wall. Tip number 2. The zombies spawn every night at midnight and from midnight up to 2 in the morning from these gates. In the game, there are multiple gates such as this one here. Now, in relation to your base location and the master planning of your base, you need to consider where are these gates and where are the zombies arriving from, so that you can plan on their path, right? For your tower maze defense, you need to know where zombies will come from and how to use it to your advantage. Tip number 3. You need to master plan your future maze growth. During the game, you will start obviously at day 1 and you will go further and further into the game. You are not going to be able to plan everything from day 1, of course, but during the game you need to plan ahead. Where will be your future development? What will be your future maze? Where will be your future traps? And there is a very important feature related to that, is that you can very easily dismantle a trap and get back the ingredients from it, or the resources from it. For example, here I'm going to demolish that guillotine and I will get back the resources from it. Now, at the very beginning of the game, you only get back 50% of the resources when you demolish something and build a new one. Later on, when you develop your skill, you will then be able to recover up to 100%. So don't be scared to build things. You can change them later. It's not cast in stone. Tip number 4. Some traps can make zombies fall. And this is very important features of these traps. Because when you build your maze, and if zombies fall off the maze, then they will go back at the very beginning of the maze. So there are several traps that can make zombies fall. Here are some of them. You can see here I have some pendulums. Here, pendulum number 1 that can kick zombies out here and out here. Another pendulum here. A cutter trap. A cutter trap can also push them on the sides here. And lastly, another one obviously is a trapdoor. So the trapdoor, when the zombie will walk over it, it will fall. So pendulums, cutter traps, and trapdoors will force zombies to fall down. And they will then walk, they will walk back to the entrance of the maze. So you can create loops, such as this loop of death. Tip number 5. The different type of traps have different numbers of counts. Some have 100 counts, some have 30 counts, some have 25 counts, and some have as low as 10 counts. There are even some special ones with only 1 count, but a trap with only 1 count is for now not really the purpose of this tutorial. So the trap, such as a guillotine, is doing a lot of damage but has only 10 counts. So typically you would avoid to put such a trap with only 10 counts at the front of your maze at the start. You put it at the end. So here for instance, at the end of this maze, and I have multiple guillotines. If I go to the front, I don't have any single guillotine at the front of the maze. Tip number 6. Different traps cover a different footprint. Some traps cover a large area, such as a pendulum, 3 blocks, or the shredder, 2 blocks. And in order to save space in your maze, you will need at some point in time to select areas with a high density of traps. In order to do this, you need to consider different combos, like spiked flow together with compressor, or spiked flow together with pendulums, where you will have multiple traps in a very narrow area. Take here, for example, I have 1, 2, 3 blocks, and over 3 blocks, I have a total of 3 compressor, 3 spiked flows, and 4 guillotines. So that's my rare kill area at the end of that maze. That gives a big output of damage here in a narrow, highly dense area. Tip number 7. You need to take into account that during the game there will be different challenges coming nights after nights. And you need to be aware that starting day 2, you will start to have jumping zombies. So you need for this to plan ahead and have either some walls, such as here, or some handrails under the category fences. These handrails or these walls will prevent jumpers to jump onto you. That's starting day 2. Starting day 5, you will have zombies that explodes and burn. So if you have structures, walls, foundations, floors in wood, they will burn. So for day 5, you need to be protected from the fire. Lastly, for day 20, you will start to receive elite zombies that will come from the initial waves, not only from the 2 a.m. final wave. Because until day 20, you only get elite zombies at the final wave at 2 in the morning. But starting day 20, they come right from the beginning. So your maze design need to take this into account. Tip number 8. The radius of attraction. It's important to have this concept in mind when you are designing your base on the long term. Starting 50 blocks away from the player, zombies can smell the player and they will be attracted by the player from 50 blocks away. Now, there is another device in the game called the meat bait, and that meat bait will have a higher attraction to the zombies than the player. If there is a meat bait close to you, zombies will not attack you. They will go to eat the meat bait. So here is my test room for the meat bait. I will show you here. I have placed a meat bait, and that meat bait from this position here will cover a radius of approximately 8 blocks, and within these 8 blocks, zombies will ignore the player and they will go towards the meat bait. Now in your master planning of your base, you need to take this into account, that your base ultimately will be much bigger than the 8 blocks radius than the meat bait. However, the 50 block radius of the player will attract the zombies on a further distance. But the meat bait will attract on a nearer distance, but at a stronger attraction. Tip number 9. Closed doors are considered as walls by zombies, and this is breaking their passing. Therefore, you can just simply have a door like this one, and in an emergency you can just get in, no problem. This is because when a zombie will cross the door, he will close it. So when the first zombie will enter, the door will be closed. So only one zombie will cross through a door. Tip number 10, and for me, probably on the long run, one of the most important tips in your maze design. Ultimately, you need to plan to have multiple mazes. The first reason is that during the nights, during the waves, during the night, there are multiple small waves that then ends into a final wave at 2 in the morning. If you have one big strong maze, it will be damaged by the initial waves, and the final wave will have a easier time to come to you. If you have multiple waves, multiple mazes, you can stay in one maze for the initial waves and then switch to the final wave maze. There is a second point in there, is that for each zombie passing, there is a maximum number of zombies allowed in that pass. We don't know yet how many zombies can be in one pass. But say, for example, if you have maximum 100 zombies in one pass, then the zombies exceeding the first 100 zombies need to have another way to go to you or to their goal. Therefore, on the long run, you necessarily, at some point in time, will need multiple mazes. So better plan ahead that as part of your base design, you will consider having multiple bases. On my end, I have 3 as of today, but I started with 2 very early. That's my main maze and my serpent maze. And in the last 12 to 15 nights, I have designed here this loop of death. So how it's designed, that this loop of death is here to handle all the waves until the final wave. And when I go into the final wave, I close this door, that's then considered as a wall, and I can then play with my 2 main mazes. The original one here, and my serpent maze, the massive shredding area with the flamethrower. So you can have different mazes, or you should have several mazes, and you need to have different designs of your different mazes. I hope these tips have been useful, and you will therefore survive longer against the Horror Nights, and you will discover and enjoy this fantastic game. I invite you to join us on the nightofthedead.org, a forum dedicated to this community. It's growing. It's just recently created, but presents a bright future for all of us, players of Night of the Dead. I hope you have enjoyed this video. Please leave a like and subscribe. Until then, have a good day. Cheers.